Thanks very much, Tom. Thank you, BI, for sponsoring Carlos and me this morning. While I'm the person up here, I just want to have you notice all of the folks who work with these data. Andres Perez is a co-investigator on the grant with the Swine Health Information Center. Monsitor Murray works with us specifically with some flu virus information, which isn't part of the aggregate stuff, but does go out to certain participants. Mohammed Alchemist does some work with us on virus evolution. Kim Vanderwall does our network analysis. Julio Alvarez works with some of our antimicrobial resistance data. And then we have some collaborative efforts with Danielle Linares and Daryl Holtkamp at Iowa State that we'll talk a little bit about. And then you can see a variety of students and postdocs on the right side, all of whom have different pieces of work with the project. So a lot of effort going into it. The current participation of this particular project that Tom introduced, we have 29 systems. A system could be a production company. You'll see we have 21 production companies. Could be a regional project. We've got 4 regional projects. Could be a veterinary practice that shares their data from their various farms that they service. You see 1,022 sow farms corresponding to roughly 2.6 million sows. So, almost half of the industry, U.S. industry, in terms of sow number. Not in terms of herds, but in terms of sow number. And then I'll show you in a second the fact that most of these participants share the fact that they participate, which I really appreciate because it shows leadership to everybody else. And then we have 300, roughly, folks who aren't participating but receive the report. And any one of you are welcome to receive the report as well. As Tom said, everything we do is with regards to a long-term objective. By long-term, I mean 3 to 5 years or so. We hope to have a capacity in place to give the industry a chance to respond to an emerging pathogen should it decide to. Right? So we had PED go through in 2013, and we really didn't respond very well in terms of stopping the spread until 53% of our sow farms became infected. And so we hope to do a better job on the next emerging pathogen because we know there will be more emerging pathogens. Now, in order to do that, in order to have that long-term goal, we realized that I'm guessing virtually nobody would participate unless we could deliver short-term value. So our short-term objective is we've got all these data. We've got to figure out ways to help the veterinarian and the producer make more money, basically. How can we use your data to help you make decisions tomorrow to help you control these pathogens? So everything we do and we talk about this morning is with regards to that short-term value to try and encourage participation. Our process it came out of this meeting actually 3, 4, 5 years ago where we said, boy, we don't really know what's going on with PRRS virus. If you'll share your data and you over there will share your data, we can put it together and we can report back what's happening with PRRS. And that was the seed that was planted and has now grown into this project whereby veterinarians from these 29 systems report every week on change of status that happens with regards to several important pathogens. We take that information, we report it back every Friday, come hell or high water, we're sending a report out, and it's the same sort of basic report that we put out, and we'll show you in a minute what that looks like. On the right, you see the logos or the names of those who are willing to share the fact that they do participate. There's several who prefer at this moment, for whatever reason, to just keep their participation anonymous, but all the ones on the right say, yeah, we're willing to share our data, and there's an important statement. These producers are willing to share their premises IDs, so not just the health status, but the location, and pathogen status in the interests of national disease control. That's a very important statement because it reflects, their supposed willingness, come the next pathogen, to help the industry head it off. So there you see the participants. At the very bottom, you can see the regional projects that participate. The report, the first page is just this one with our participants. The second page is our PRRS data. Third page is PED. Fourth page, we've got some recent plotting, some recent reporting of Seneca virus. Fifth page, we put out what we call a science page, and we're always looking for ideas and content if any of you would like to supply us with a science page. Sixth page is anybody who receives the report from us, we want their name and their affiliations so the participants can see, and it's perfectly transparent, who receives the report. And then seventh page through probably 30 pages or so is system level data. And that doesn't go out to non-participants. I put up all these publications because we try to be very transparent, and we try to not only help the participants, but we try to help non-participants. And so this is just several reports and papers that we've put out with the data. This is the, you can't read this, this is just 52 weeks of science pages. And as I said, we're always looking for material to try and educate, try and use our data ideally to educate with regards to something, with regards to pathogen control. And if somebody doesn't want to read the entire page, we put up at the very top some key points. What are you going to learn if you read this page? Key points up top. This is one of our, call it hallmark charts. And this is last week's chart on PRRS incidence. And this is one that we look at actively. Down in the bottom right is a blow up of the last 10 weeks or so of PRRS incidence. And I won't go into detail, but you can see there, at least at the aggregate level, a fairly repeatable pattern of breaking through that red line, which is our 95% confidence interval of expected incidence. And that breakthrough takes place roughly this time of year every year. And we see spread through the winter, and then decreasing early spring, and settling down in the summer. And then we've got various other little minor patterns that are taking place within there that we're interested in, but we don't understand. And Carlos will take this apart a little bit more in a couple of minutes. PED incidence, this is remarkable in my opinion. You see on the far left the 2013 break where 53% of our sow herds became infected. Then you see the following year where I believe, off the top of my head, I think it was 9% or so. Then last year was 6%. And we've seen one break in the last probably 2-3 months. And I expect we'll see a few more. But it's remarkable learning and application of what we've learned as an industry in terms of PED control, exemplified by this chart. And we wouldn't know this, we wouldn't know we're so good with respect to PED unless these folks were sharing their data. We'd have a feeling, but this is remarkable. Just to explain to you how we manage the data, and data management and data security is paramount for us. So on the far right there is the visualization. We send out these reports, whether it be generated in Excel traditionally. Carlos is going to show you a little bit about what we're doing today with Tableau. We also use some ArcGIS and Google Earth on an as-needed basis. You can see there that the vet reports on the very bottom can go into a program called Alteryx for some data massage. We've got 6 University of Minnesota primarily Minnesota participants that use the VDL at University of Minnesota. We're getting all of their diagnostic data, and we'll expand that gradually as need be to other major diagnostic labs. But we've currently got that going into a database out of which then we can pull a variety of data, because it's all there, right? All of their cases going back to the beginning are all in that database, so we can pull out, for example, antimicrobial resistance, or we can easily pull out virus sequences if we want to do some further work with that. And then where we're headed is ultimately, we imagine, having VDL data from more than one lab, going into that database, then going through perhaps Alteryx for data massage, data cleaning, and then going out into some visualization tools for the veterinarians. And you can see an alternative path down at the bottom. We're exploring an alternative program for, again, for more advanced analytics and visualization that'll be web-based, and it's a pilot version right now that we're exploring. So that's where we're headed with regards to data. And at this point now, Carlos Vilalta, one of our postdocs, is going to come up. Carlos is a veterinarian from Spain. We were able to recruit Carlos to come here in April, March, April, and he's primarily in charge of taking these data and presenting them in Tableau. So Carlos is going to present that.
Thank you, Bob. So, as Bob was saying, we have two main streams of this data, coming one from the VDL, and the other one is coming from the vets that are reporting. So in our everyday process of dealing with this data visualization helps us to understand this data at the beginning and at the end of this process of data management. We use that at the beginning as a way of see trends, start analyzing this data, see clusters, and then apply the best methods to analyze this data. And also, we use the visualization at the end of this process to communicate, because a picture worth 1,000 words, and we can put a lot of information in only one visual. So in order to achieve that goal, we're using this program, this software that is called Tableau. So Tableau is a software, is a drag and drop tool where you can put all the information in this software, you can put all the variables, and then you can start splitting the data, you can break it down, you can aggregate, you can deaggregate, and you can build different charts. You can build scatter plots, you can build box plots, you can build maps, you can build bar charts, any type of visualization that you can imagine. Then you can combine them, and then you can build bigger ones, and also put some filters, and well, just play with the data. You can connect this software to SQL databases. You can connect this software to text files, CSV, Excel spreadsheets, and then you can perform some cleanings and some processes through this program without altering the raw database, which is good because then any other researcher can use this raw database to perform any other analysis without being altered. So it has two versions, this software. It has the desktop version, and it has an online tool. So we're using the desktop version to create these visualizations, and once we are comfortable with that, we can upload this to the online tool, so all the people, all the participants can see what we are doing, and then can also play with these filters and look for the information they are looking for. One of the strengths of this database, combined with these tools, is the ability to aggregate and split the data in many different ways. So you can see, you can go at any different level. So I'm going to give you some examples of what we are doing with these two main databases, the one that is coming from the SHMP and the one that is coming from the VDL. I'm going to talk about prevalence, incidence, EWMA, TTS, heat maps, and then from the VDL part, I'm going to talk about what we are doing with the R5 sequences and susceptibility. So here is the prevalence of the farms that we are collecting from the SHMP. So what we are looking here is the prevalence over time of the different farms, of the different categories, in order of being brevity. In order of brevity, I would say that the red are the farms that are shedding, the green are the farms that are negative, and the ones that are orange, pink, and yellow are the farms that are undergoing elimination under different procedures. So here we can plot what is going on in each state. We can add these filters, and we can filter by state, and then we can compare them. What are the trends, if that is increasing, if that is decreasing, who is using more vaccine, who is using more field virus, if there's any change of the trend, if there's a decrease in prevalence of positive farm, if there's an increase in in negative farms. We can compare management styles or densities in each state. And we can also do the same by system, as you can see at the bottom of this visualization. If we look at the incidence in this visualization, we have on the top part of the slide, we have a map where you can see the raw count of outbreaks, and then it allows you to depict that on the map as a field map by state. You could see that the darker the color, the more number of cases. We have added this filter at the bottom, at the top of the slide, that you can select the year, so we can play with that as well. And then at the same time, this map is also a filter. You can select the states that you want, and then the data comes at the bottom of that chart, and then you can see how is the incidence over time, and also you can see how is the aggregated incidence during the year. And then you can start seeing different trends. For example, in Iowa, you can see that, the most of the cases are at the beginning and at the end of the year, with something in the middle in the summer. And then in North Carolina, you can see that mostly the most cases are between February and April. Then, as Bob was introducing, we have the EWMA, which is an aggregated of all the cases. And here, there's a lot of information here, so a lot of questions are coming out of our mind. You can ask if that is there's any trend there. Is that repeatable? Is there a pattern? Is it decreasing? Or is it, I don't know, taking longer to reach stability? Because we are seeing that the base of those peaks is widening. So then, because you have all these questions, you try to deaggregate this data to find some answers, and what you find is more questions. So here we have the same, the EWMA for all the states, and you can see that, yes, it is repeatable, and there's a pattern for some of the regions, but some others are pretty constant with the number of cases. And then also we can see that there are some peaks, and those spikes, maybe they are pointing a new strain introduction in that specific region. Now let's have a look at time to stability. Time to stability is the time between the outbreak and the farm to produce negative piglets, to wean negative piglets. So in this visualization, we can see in the x-axis time, and the y-axis we can see the number of weeks that each outbreak or each farm takes to reach that stability. And then we can plot this in a scatter plot with each farm or each break has an ID, an identification. With this data, we can aggregate the data, or we can split the data and compare different systems and different regions, and then we can see that there's different in trends between systems or regions. We can also aggregate this data and then calculate averages for regions or systems, and then we can see that there's also that difference that we were seeing before, and there's room for improvement. We can also aggregate this data in another different way, and we can identify the outliers, who are the outliers, and work with those and try to be better in reducing the disease. What I'm showing you here is another visualization. In this case is a map, because it's a good way to understand what we are seeing. Here we're seeing, or we are looking at farms that are shedding, and with this shedding group is farms that are status 1, farms that are using vaccine, or farms that are using field virus to undergo elimination. So we believe that this is a good and quick visual to quickly analyze regional risk. So if you are in one region or another, you can apply or increase your biosecurity procedures to try to reduce the spread of the disease. And now I'm going to move to the second group of visualizations, the ones that we are working with the data coming from the diagnostic labs. In this case here, we are working with the R5 strains. So in this visualization, you can see In this case, there's a filter at the top right of the screen that it says strain all. So we have selected all the strains for this specific system or for this specific region. And then at the bottom left, you can see the similarity table of those strains. So you have a map on the top of this visualization where we are plotting the farms where these strains are coming from. And at the bottom right of the slide, you can see where those strains were coming from over time. So we can see that between 2015 and 2016, it was an increase in sampling in that specific system. So once we change the reference strains, what we can see is that the similarity table has been reduced to only one column. This is the strain and how it's related with other strains. And also, well, the same on the map, how is this strain related to the other strains that were located on the map and in the timeline as well. So the darker the color, more related are the strains. And from time to time, what happens is that you find a case like this, where you select a strain, there's no any relation, or it doesn't seem that there's any relationship with that, and then you see that there's only one farm that has a strong correlation or it has a strong similarity with that other strain. And then you can point that maybe that's a secondary case coming from that farm, or that farm was the source of that strain. And you can also see where is that sample taking over time. And I think, well, we're going to move to the other set of data coming from the labs, that is the susceptibility. We also have the ability to aggregate the data coming from the different companies, and we can build these visualizations, we can add some filters with all the data, and in this case we have added two filters that are filtering by isolate and by antimicrobial, and then you can select what isolate do you want to look at. In this case we have Pasteurella multocida, and we are comparing the frequency distribution of enrofloxacin and penicillin. So in our everyday work in a farm we can select or we can compare how is this frequency of this strain compared with the susceptibility of enrofloxacin and penicillin. We can also modify this data and then see how this trend changing over time, if it's more consistent, if it's increasing, or if it's decreasing. So we can play with the data at different levels. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Bob. Thank you very much.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carlos. To finish up, I'll just mention some other studies that we have that we can do with the data. We were at a farm in northeast Iowa here 6 months or so ago, and the producer asked, I'm going to build a new GDU. Should I build it at the bottom of the hill or the top of the hill, given that northeast Iowa is rather rolling? So Andrea Arruda, a postdoc from Argentina, took this, I always get Argentina, I think I just insulted her, Brazil. Good thing she's not here. Don't tell her. So he said, where should I build it? Well, so Andrea took the 705 farms that we have of PRRS data, looking back 5 years, pulled out a variety of publicly available data on slope, on coverage, on density, on, and was able to address this question, and finds out that farms at the top of the hill, this is a picture you can see where the farm in the back at the top of the hill, she found out has significantly lower incidence of PRRS over those years than farms at the bottom of the hill. And similarly, she found that coverage, as represented by trees or at least shrubs, also provided additive protection in decreasing the incidence of PRRS virus. So really nice work that we would not have been able to address without these data. We've got a study that we're starting on Outbreak as a supplement to Outbreak investigation, and I'm going to just fly through this rather quickly, where we've got 3 clusters of participants across the U.S. where we're going to provide some supplementary investigative work for their efforts with regards to PRRS virus infection. We're hoping to learn the proportion of breaks that take place where the virus is consistent with neighboring sites, Some of our participants say, you know, I know it's from the neighboring sites. I don't even need to test them. I don't even need to do an outbreak investigation. I'm so sure that it's come over from the neighboring sites. So we're going to try and provide some assistance to try and confirm that that's true or not. This is just a shot of some work that Mohammed is doing with regards to strain evolution, and he's publishing this. I thought, well, there's a pretty picture. I'll just throw that in. He's looking at viruses as they are being detected at the diagnostic lab and as they are evolving over time, and trying to determine in the long run, can we detect a new strain, couple that with production data that we should care about. That's the long-term objective with regards to that particular question. Then we've also got a variety of studies that we've done with regards to time to stable, time to baseline for the relatively new RFLP type 174. We did a nice study with some of our participants here on how long does it take to ferro-negative pigs post-break. And then we're starting a study now where we're recruiting farms to see if you saw that data on the time to stable, and there was an enormous amount of variability in that time to stable. And this is all building on Danielle's work from several years ago. And we're saying a lot of farms take too long to accomplish stability. And we're proposing that a Wean-down can significantly reduce that time to stable and pay back, I think, Carlos, in about 3.7 weeks, we think. So that's a study that we're doing. Then I've got those other studies that we're doing with Daryl and Danielle in terms of using SHMP data to try and help the industry. Just in terms of that Wean-down study, a critical driver is where biosecurity is sufficient. We know that PRRS dies out of sow farms and they become stable. So the question then becomes, well, what do I need to do to get stable sooner? And the better, obviously, is the biosecurity, the sooner a farm will achieve stability. So we're saying, well, we learned, if you skip down to that second bullet, we learned from Danielle's work that time to stable at weaning is about a half year, 28 weeks or so. We learned from Hunter's work that time to stable is about 13 weeks at farrowing. So if you're farrowing mostly, if not all, negative pigs in 13 to 16 weeks, let's say, one turn of sows, but you're not getting stable for another 3 months, then that's basically us moving the virus around in lactation, right? And so there's an opportunity to step up your biosecurity when you start farrowing negative pigs, So we're hypothesizing that we can reduce that time to stable by doing a wean-down project and basically eliminate or greatly reduce the prevalence of virus in lactation, and that then, we think, will lead to decreased time to stable. Signing you up. And with BI support, we'll help on the diagnostic testing if you'll enroll. So we're enrolling 30 farms. We've got several enrolled so far, and if you're interested, let us know. $1,000 credit per herd towards your diagnostics if you're willing to participate. So in summary, I just want to emphasize 2 major points. The first one is that this started 5 years ago, Paul and Jim Lowe, when we came, 4 or 5 years, when we were at this meeting, and we said, if we would share data, we can learn a lot more than we currently did back then. And that's where this started. And so that data sharing willingness on the part of these participants, I'll share my locations, I'll share my health status, just to go and do good work, is the basis of this entire project. We regard that data as sacred, in a sense. We're extremely careful about that data, that we treat it respectfully, it's secure, that we don't have breaches in security, because we understand the vulnerability of folks if that data is revealed. So we regard that highly. And we do appreciate those systems. We are expanding the project gradually as our abilities allow. Ultimately, you can imagine in 3 to 5 years, let's say, having 95% of the industry participating. That'd be a long-term goal.